I'm JetGirl777, and you're listening to the Pump Wash Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to the Pump Wash Podcast. It's me, Jet Girl, and today I have a really cool guest. This is Tera Laho. If you don't know her, you live under a rock. Tera Laho is a legend in jet ski racing. She is definitely one of the top female riders of all time, and she really made her mark on jet ski racing. I personally am a fan of her because I think as far as the ladies go, she was one of the toughest, and I think some of the boys know it as well. And she was one of the first to really kind of beat up on the boys. I know that a lot of jet skiers and jet ski racers remember the famous Tera and Christy rivalry. And I think Tera was just so gritty and so tough, but she was also kind of tiny like me. So I took a lot of inspiration from Tera just for how tough she was. And yep, exactly. And how fast she was. So I'm really looking forward to having her on the show today, but I'll let Tera introduce herself. Go for it.
Okay, well, I'm Tera Laho, and yes, I was in the watercraft industry for many years. So, starting in towards the end of 1990 was when I first kind of got in, and kind of ended in like I don't know 2002 or so. Won a lot of championships, and kind of bounced in and out throughout the last I don't know 20 years or so. So, yeah, been in it for a long time. Won lots of championships and all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah. Yeah.
She's kind of being humble about it. I feel like the first thing I really want to talk about today was that, I feel like most people remember you for like the big kind of glamorized rivalry that we saw on like ESPN, but you kind of like exploded onto the scene all of a sudden and started causing problems for all these girls that had been around for a while. So I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how you got into jet ski racing specifically and kind of up until the point of what I really remember was like the Yamaha days. Like you were like the face of Yamaha all of a sudden with like McCluggage. Whereas before, like you had kind of been this little like dark horse, like causing some problems pretty fast. And then you came out swinging with Yamaha and were like a major problem for everybody. So how did you get to the factory Yamaha season?
Yeah, so working my way into Yamaha took some work, right? I had to go through all like the rookie phases and the expert ranks and all that kind of stuff. But generally, like I grew up in Lake Havasu, so how can you not know what jet ski racing is? So yeah, so I was raised here. I'm 51 now, but I've been in Havasu since I was 3.
Wow.
So I was brought up on dirt bikes, total tomboy dirt bikes every day, all the way from a 50 to the 60 to the 80 to the 125, 250, and that was it. Of course, never a 450 because that's way too much for this girl. However, so that kind of just led into jet skis eventually. Not until I was 17, actually,
Hmm.
was when I first got my first ski. 16 and then 17 is when it all kind of kicked in. But I went down to the world finals here and I would watch, as a teenager, I'd watch all the racers and I just loved what they did. And I remember watching the pro women came on, like, oh, Christy Carlson, she was at, and this was like the late 80s. And I was just in awe. I remember the crowds being so big back then at the Nautical Inn and kind of peeking through the bushes, like where we can get like closest to the water. And I watched the girls and I just remember kind of thinking, they're not that fast. Like it just didn't seem that fast in me because I had just gotten done watching pro ski
Mhm.
and then they went in the pro women ski and naturally, the women were slower. But, later on, I had no idea what it was going to take in order to even step up to that level because it was a lot of work. So that's basically how I got into it because the world finals were, right in my backyard. And so yeah. And, the transition from dirt bikes into to jet skis was, very kind of natural for me. So yeah.
What was the first stand up that you were riding around on?
The slowest 440 ever.
That's why you're so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I you know, Yeah, we all have like our early kind of funny stories, but my first ski was a stock 440 that I was making payments on to a friend of a friend who wasn't making the payments, and it
Oh
got
my.
repossessed. It was anyway, a stock 440 is what I started on. And then, as I worked my way into racing, it transitioned into a 440 super stock, which was the class for
Mhm.
the women at the time. So before the Yamaha.
Yeah.
So I did it. I did 1 year expert in 1991. I did one race in November of 90 as a beginner. I did one race as a novice, and then in 91 I won that novice class like right away, and I had to convince my dad to let me to race, because he wasn't so keen on the idea. I thought it was going to be dangerous or whatever. But I dragged him to that novice race, and I won it. And I came home from school that Monday, and he's like, "That's it. I signed you up for the expert class. We're doing this series and that series." And I was like, whoa, okay, like here we go, like
All in.
so
That's
all
awesome.
in. So I did 1 full year of expert and then went right into the pro class. Yeah.
So my next question was going to be how long did it take you to get to pro? But it sounds like it was pretty fast. Like,
Yeah, about 7 races as an expert.
so you
So
really
yeah,
you snuck up on everybody big time.
I did, but I paid my dues. I mean, I was
Yeah.
practicing a lot and my ski was really slow. And then, I had to do a full season, as a rookie pro too. And there's a lot of learning curves there as
Mhm.
well on the 440 super stock.
So how deep were you into the pro career before you were with the Yamaha team?
One one year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 1992, I was on the 440 super stock, which did a big 43 miles an hour.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I basically got my ass handed to me, a lot of the tour stops, and like when you're a rookie, and I had just graduated high school, and like 3 days later I took off for the national tour, completely unaware of the adventure I was about to begin, but yeah, I had to go through all the, if I didn't win on the weekends, it was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all week and sleeping on the roof of the box van and all the rookie stuff, gas cans carrying across the sand all by yourself and, rebuilding your top ends on your own because it needed to be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, just all the learning curves and I had to have a season on that 440 super stock before I got into the Yamaha later on. So,
And
yeah.
maybe you could speak to this more, but like as someone that watched it unfold, on like TV and reading about it and stuff, like to me, you always seemed a lot like grittier and aggressive than a lot of the other girls, and not like mean, but just like tough. Like you were like the dog in the fight, right? Like you always seemed just like moving through the pack, really tough. And personally from my own experience, I kind of wonder if it's from that, like having the slower ski, having to carry everything around, like on the road with your dad, like you get a little bit if when it was me doing that program with my dad, like I felt like the scrappy kid, like I had to
Yeah.
work extra hard, so what was it like that, or did that like grittiness come from just wanting to win?
Well, actually, Anna, I had no one on tour with me. So
Oh,
my
so
was
even
I was
tougher.
18. I had just, I had turned 18 and I was on the road with my friends at this point. So I did, the expert class and my parents, I was still in high school at that time. And then when I went pro, I turned pro and I graduated high school. Like I said, 3 days later, I had one of the other racers picked me up anyway, I ended up caravanning with a bunch of other racers.
Mhm.
I had all my parts with me, all my cans, no quad to pull the ski across the sand. So it was the full rookie everything. Rebuilding jet skis inside the hotel room, that kind of stuff. But I did it all myself, and we all just, as friends, helped each other through the tour. in that rookie season. So, and it
Yeah.
and it was a lot of fun. However, I did end up going home with broken ribs. I was in second place overall, and I ended up getting hit in the first corner, like towards the end of that first rookie season, and so I went home with a fifth overall.
Oh
So
man,
yeah,
that's brutal.
yeah,
Oh man. Yeah,
yeah,
I definitely think like I mean, that's one of the reasons why I admired you like by yourself was just that like you were little but you were so tough. Like you definitely had a lot of bite. Like and I think that that was awesome. Especially at that time, like everything was super competitive. Like we had factory teams and stuff and then there was you like fighting your way up, to get your spot. So I thought that was always really cool.
yeah. That was just in my blood. I grew up, like I said, I grew up on skateboards first, heavy into skating. I've surfed every or skated every cement wash in Lake Havasu. I had ramps. I was like the only girl that hung out with the boys because I liked all the fun sports. I wanted to skateboard, water ski, bike, jet ski, but the dirt bike thing was like way up here for me. So
Hmm.
I think, like I said, it was just a natural transition. And later on, when I did get that Yamaha ride, you know, I was just able to make it work for me. So yeah,
Yeah, you definitely like I said, it was a little bit quiet as you kind of like worked your way up and then suddenly you were on that Yamaha and you were just like in everybody's face. And so now that we're kind of in the Yamaha realm, I want to talk about that like iconic rivalry because everybody talks about the Christy versus Tera years online and that's still rolling
yeah.
around and people I actually just pulled this off my wall.
Oh yeah, I love that shot. That's so cool.
It says so this is 96 and it says the only IJSBA Pro-Am women's ski champions in the 90s square off again in 96. Like that's such a big
Yeah.
statement. Like you guys both were so dominant at the time that it was like no, they didn't even talk about anybody
We
else.
were so fast, without a doubt. Like she pushed me to new levels that, I had to in order to do what I wanted to do. And she was feeding off my vibe too, and we just kept kind of raising and raising
Mhm.
and going.
Yeah.
But yeah, you always have, a competitor out there that's gonna push you. And she was it, man. She's definitely the queen of the sport. And I was, a little rougher, a little worse at interviews, a little bit more hippie chick. And, I just felt like she, had it all together. And I was just kind of winging it, but it did take the Yamaha ride for me to be able to even knock on her door. So once I put in the hard work and I picked up with ProTech in
Yeah.
93, then it was kind of game on and all the way through that era. So
And that's
yeah,
one of the things on my podcast that I've been doing is like back then, you guys didn't have social media and everybody just kind of read what was in the magazines or kind of, watched along on TV and drew their own conclusions. So I was going to ask, obviously that rivalry was like televised and covered really heavily in magazines and like we don't have that anymore. So I was
yeah,
curious like, what was that like for you at that young age to like be staring down with her every weekend and then know it's going to be in the magazines or on TV. It was very publicized versus now where it's just like everybody just argues on Facebook and then they go home, like what was that like for you to live through that versus what everybody kind of thinks it looked like, because it looked vicious. They wanted it to look vicious for the
yeah.
views, so what was it like for you living it?
Well, my all my injuries now tell me it really was vicious. But it was a lot of work. And to be honest, the racing was what I was there for. And that whole TV, blah, 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 like those interviews scared me more than being on the starting line. Like I was never looking forward to the end because I had no training and speaking in public or how to thank my sponsors. I mean, I was there for one thing, and I was there to go out and I just wanted to ride my best. I mean, I was so obsessed with racing. I mean, it was the feeling that you get when you're on the starting line and the adrenaline and the you're such an athlete at the time. And yeah, that was everything that I was hooked on. Just the feels, the surf, the triples, the doubles, the starting line, and yeah, it was all good.
And then I know recently I actually got to be there for it. You guys reunited like 20
Yeah.
something years later. And I was standing there and I again, I don't know what it was like for you guys back then. So I was kind of standing back like, I don't know, are they gonna hug? Are they gonna fight? Like, what is this gonna look like? And it was so cool to watch you guys like connect. And I just was like a fly on the wall. And so I wanted to ask, what was that like, reconnecting with literally, like you said, your biggest rival, pushed you, and now here you are, you've kind of stepped away from all that and you see her again after all this time.
Yeah, that was really cool. And our sons got to meet too. So, and actually, that was the first time I've gotten to talk to Christy outside of racing because, I mean, back then that was our job. Like our job was to beat each other because essentially she worked for Kawasaki and I worked for Yamaha. We're
Mhm.
two competitors. We're at the top of our games, and so there was always a rivalry, but there's always a sense of respect. Like if she won, it was because she flat out beat me, and if I won, it was the same deal. So it was always mad respect for each other, but we never had sat down and said, "Oh, hey, how was your day? How's it going? What are you gonna do later?" It wasn't like that at all. I mean, we were there on the track for business
Mhm.
and to excel as athletes. So yeah, it was really cool. I'm so glad you came to Havasu.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was really cool for me. Like I probably cried to be honest, but I was just like these are like I admire you both for very different reasons. Like kind of like you said, like Christy was this like personality with the TV and like very like
Yeah,
graceful on television, and like I learned a lot from how she carried herself on TV. And then like you
for
said, I
sure.
think you were avoiding the cameras because I
Dude, I do
never
it at all costs. I didn't
because
want
I
it wasn't me, but I mean, I did some things, like there'd be photo shoots or whatever, and I'd be like, I really don't like makeup. It's
but
not,
the photo
I
shoot's
don't want
okay because you're
to,
on the jet ski.
right. Yeah, that kind of, anything, I could put the ski wherever I wanted, but anything like a lifestyle, yeah, it wasn't my forte. I
Yeah.
was just there to haul ass and run around in my
But that's
bikini.
that's what I that's what I
Yeah,
looked up to you for, was like you said, like Christy was like the personality and like the grace under pressure, and then you were just freaking tough, like tough as
yeah,
nails. You could see it just even how you were standing on the jet ski, like you were not gonna let, it's like if there was somebody in front of you, they better move the hell out of the way because you were
yeah.
coming through. Like, and I love that again because you were like petite and tough and just like gritty. And that is kind of the next thing that I was gonna bring up was the other thing that I admired was like, and I couldn't tell you which year, you're gonna know this better than me, but
Okay.
there's old like Hot Summer Nights ESPN World Finals footage where you were in the pro men's class and
Yes.
you were in the mix. Like we're talking like, the Jeff Jacobs and the Nicholas Rios and the Fichettis. And then there's
Yeah.
Tera Laho and you were like top five or something and just like creeping up on them. And I don't
Yeah.
know. Again, some of it has to do with, there's no social media, there's no TV. But as far as I was watching, that was the first time that I saw a chick in the pro class that again was causing a serious problem for
I
everybody
did.
else.
I caused a ruckus there, and
And
that
it,
was totally unexpected.
so
So
what year was that?
I'm gonna say it was like 97. So Christy and I had our battles, right, in 96. And in 96 World Finals, she won. She put a number two on my ski. So in 97, I came back with Riva, and I was at the top of my game again. I, had worked out all the bugs with the engines. I had Tim Judge wrenching on the ski, and things were going really well. And I was kicking ass in the women's class, and I started to get bored, and not bored like disrespectful, but
No, I get it.
I wasn't. As a racer, you always want to get faster and faster,
You're
and
looking for a challenge.
and they're like, hey, do you want to just try to race your limited in the men's class? It's super rough conditions. The first time was in Chicago, and the waves were pretty big wind waves on
Mhm.
Lake Michigan that day. And I was like, heck, why not? And all the guys were super welcoming at the beginning of the day,
There
which
we
was
go.
so funny. Yeah, they're like, I went out and practiced with them, and they're all about it. And I remember, like we're all just good friends, and they're totally welcoming. And the very first moto, I passed like there was no tomorrow, and I came out in like fifth. And
Nice.
I pulled into the tech area, and I remember some of my friends, some of my, guy friends in the class, they wouldn't even look at me. Like I pulled in and I was like, highlight, good race. And
You're like pumped, and they're like,
they're like, yeah, okay. So yeah, I'll never forget that. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
whoops.
Yeah. So after that, it was, once the helmet goes on, that's it.
Oh yeah,
You're no
game on.
longer, yeah, you're just another person on the line. So, and that made me such a better racer, and it changed the game. And mad respect to for those guys because it was where it was at. So yeah, after that it was game on, and yeah,
Yeah, I
it was
know
cool.
I personally like one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about that was because like, I am one of those girls that's like, oh, beating up on the boys this weekend. Like, I love it. Like, let's go race the boys class. And I think I learned the most. Like, the year that I won my world title was the year that all I did was race the boys. Like, lots of boys, and they were bullying me all over the track. Like, no mercy. Like you said, like, helmets go on, and it's like there's no
Yeah,
pulling punches. Yeah. And I
which is
learned
awesome.
so much. Like,
Yeah,
I was so much tougher from racing with these guys. And thankfully, a
yeah,
lot of them, like, we come in and they'd be like, oh, that was sick. And are you
totally.
okay? Like, so most of the time they were cool, but I learned so much from racing the guys. And then I'd translate that over into the girls' class. So that was another thing. Like, I watched you doing that and I was like, surely there's a benefit to this because Tera is honestly terrifying and I want to be as fast as her. And so that was something that we did was like, just get the boys class with the most of them and just try and survive because they're all
Yeah,
out for blood.
yeah.
So I learned a lot from watching you do that.
Yeah, and a lot of that first season was on the limited against their modified skis until they built me a modified. So then I
Is that
started
what you had
racing.
at finals?
In 90, actually 96 was the first time I raced against the men at the World Finals, and I had
Okay.
my first mod, and it grenaded. So I didn't even finish. I qualified right behind Jacobs actually in second in the qualifier, which was phenomenal. But I can feel my crankshaft was out of
You know
balance.
it's going.
And I kept, yeah, and I'm like, the rear cylinder's gonna stick. As a racer, you just know. And I'd come in and they'd be like, hey, you guys, this thing is gonna go. It's gonna go. And you can feel the vibration underneath your
Hmm.
feet, and you know your skis so well. And sure enough, it grenaded. But that next season, like I was saying, when I started with Riva, later on, they're like they put a modified underneath my feet, and I did that for the years to come too. So, and that was a lot to hang on to. So
I think what I remember was I think it was when the thing let go because I remember you were doing really well. And I think on the live feed, they
yeah,
were like, oh, like that's too bad. I
that
think that's
was
what I saw was
yeah,
probably that specific incident, which was a huge bummer because like you said, like you had qualified really well and everybody was really pumped about it. And then I think on the TV
yeah.
stream, like you had to
And
pull
I
off the
was
track.
I was well trained too. I was a machine that season. So, but once you get to the finals and your stuff is already built, it's not like they can go into the pits and go, "Oh, okay, let's take care of this issue." I mean,
Mhm.
it kind of, I don't like the saying it is what it is, but that's
Yeah.
where we were at the time. So,
Yeah, finals is like it's either gonna come together or it's gonna fall apart. Like there's no
yeah,
other option there. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, I loved watching you race against the guys. I thought that that was really cool. And specifically, I think that year when you qualified behind Jacobs, I think that was the one that
yeah,
I watched where I was like, man, this chick is a badass. Like she's
yeah,
lane
yeah.
of her own, like totally separate from everybody else. It was totally awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of year Jacobs will say having that year. However, I picked up on a few things. I'm like, oh, he doesn't look as in shape as he has in the past. And I mean, I was just a machine. and no one expected it. So, I mean, I was
Yeah.
training every day here in Lake Havasu. So,
You were always like the underdog. Like again, like there was Christy and she was super dominant and you were always this kind of like lurker and then if people weren't paying attention, like you would catch them off guard and they would not be
yeah,
happy about it. So
yeah,
I always thought that was awesome. That was honestly the really big stuff that I wanted to talk about. Speaking more to, what you've been up to lately, you're still hanging around town. I've definitely, I moved here 4 years ago and I see you around all the time. You come hang out at the races. I know that you've kind of worked with some juniors and things like that. So, what have you been doing lately? Are you still riding? Are you just hanging? I know you had an injury recently, right? Like was it, I can't even remember what it was, but you had to like totally lay off for a while from all your crazy
yeah,
activities.
yeah. So, like I said, I came back to racing here and there, and yeah. So the injury, my right knee is done. It's just done. So it kind of throws a curveball in life, and then I got a lot of neck injuries. I just have to be careful so I can go for some longevity from here out in
Yeah.
life. I'm 51 now. So no, I don't have a ski. I have a trailer. I'm not really ready to ditch it because you never know, but yeah, I'm just trying to be smart about things because I kind of know, what's up, what the doctors tell me with my neck. And I mean, just years of racing, wearing a helmet and
Mhm.
injury and injury. And, before that it was, all the dirt bike, you know,
Yeah.
crashes.
You've been hardcore like your entire life. You got to slow down a little
Totally on
bit.
everything I've done. So, but yeah, I mean, I can do some leisure riding, but that's kind of hard too. So, but yeah, I can go, put on my vest and go explore a little bit, and I just can't ride like I want to ride on the track without, maybe, having some repercussions on that. So,
So speaking of like kind of being around, the first time I actually met Tara was in Sparks, Nevada. I want to say like 2013 or 14 maybe. And
yeah,
I obviously was a fan and everything and she had suddenly made the announcement that she was gonna race and she had a 1100 two-stroke or a 1200 two-stroke and she showed up at Sparks and I, of course, was like 16 at the time, and I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm going to meet Tera Laho. I have a picture. I think I was literally like,
yeah,
I was like so geeked
I
out
remember.
on meeting Tara. And you got on the line with like again like 20 dudes, and here she comes through the pack, just like again, you were just this little like problem causer, and I loved it. And there were all these guys that have been racing the tour all year, and Tara just shows up, and all of a sudden she's like messing up the points and all this stuff, and it was cool because like at the time, the 1200 was the mod ski, and those things were arm rippers, and here she goes, she just shows up, throws her helmet on, like I was like totally flabbergasted. How did that happen? Like, when did you decide, like, were you just like wake up one day and you're like, oh, I think I'll come race a 1200? Like, how did that happen?
That it was totally unexpected, actually. I was working for Tech One at the time, and Chris McCluggage was down at Body Beach. And long story short, they were like, "Hey, Chris, let Tara ride your ski for a couple laps just to see what it's like." And I put my helmet on and I got on his modified 800 or 1200, whatever it was at the time, and I just ripped up the track. Like I put my helmet on and it was like it's like riding a bike. And I remember coming in and the look on their face was like, holy shit, like, okay, I think we need to, she needs to be back on racing. And it wasn't in my plans, but yeah, I mean, it was unexpected. It wasn't by any means like the best handling ski that I ended up riding. It was fast, but
Mhm.
there was different holes here and there throughout, like people building different hole designs. And I didn't have the best one at that Sparks race, but it was fast. It was super fast. But yeah, I just untrained, just a couple of races or practice laps at Buddy Beach, and kind of got thrown right back into it. But that was kind of how it was after I like retired right from racing from the early 2000s was my last hooray, hurrah. And yeah, so after that, it was just, kind of tinkering here and there. And then when I came back to the finals in 2016,
Mhm.
that was a Chris Hagest idea. So
I remember
that
that.
was totally unexpected. So I had some races here and there, 2013, 2014, just on whatever type of skis. And then I wasn't racing at all, wasn't riding. I think I just had like a old school square nose at the time. I was tinkering around on. And it was about 2 or 3 weeks before the finals in 2016, I think it was, when the
That
Pro
sounds right.
Force had just come out. So Haggis was like, hey, I'm going to have an extra mod ski. You want to come back in the men's class? I was like, hey, Chris, like the finals is in like 3 weeks. Like, no,
That
like
sounds like Chris.
that's a dumb idea. Like that's not, no, I don't want to go out and get my butt kicked, you know. But so I said no at first, and then he got a sticker kit and he stickered up the race ski with a big 64, which was the number that I wanted to go racing with. And the whole ski was just Tera Laho,
He bullied
and
you into
he's
it.
like, he pushed the ski kind of in front of me, and I saw the whole sticker kit or something, and I was like, okay, I'm in,
I'm sold.
so I'm sold. Yeah, I mean and that was the year I got to race with Toshi,
Hmm.
and Chris did a phenomenal job at putting us both on a ski. However, I just didn't have much training, so at first I was just going to do the mod class. That's when they had GP and the mod.
Hmm.
And because I wasn't in good enough shape to do all of it, but sure enough, I ended up signing up for all of it. And so I went back into racing, straight into the men's class, straight on a modified ski,
Right into pro
and
class.
right into the main GP and mod. And I mean, I did all right. It was rough conditions, but
Mhm.
I mean, I came home in ninth overall out of 20 something guys, and a third in slalom or something like
Mhm.
that. So, I mean,
I
it was
remember
really
you.
satisfying.
I remember you especially kicking ass in slalom, but what I really remembered was like there were like, 6 or 7 dudes on the track for pro ski that like had clearly given up. And then there was Tara still
Yeah.
charging, still pushing through the pack. And then there were these guys that had been racing pro all year long, training all year, and Tara's still going and they're like standing straight up and stretching their back and stuff. And it was like, man,
Yeah.
you guys, like Tara just came straight off the couch and here she is. It was
Well,
awesome.
yeah. Hey, always stay in shape because you rest, you rust. So
Hmm.
as you
Fair
get
enough.
older, I mean, I mean, I was in my 40s then when I was racing. So yeah, I mean, I was training up here.
She's still
I
tough though.
was training outside.
I've
I just
seen the
wasn't training on
flexin'.
the track.
Oh,
Yeah,
I've seen
never
the
stopped.
flexin'.
Never let it go. So
Yeah, that was really cool to see you come back and do that. And I remember what was really cool too was just like the community immediately was so excited, rallied behind you. Like it wasn't like, oh, she's crazy. Like, don't go out there with, whoever was out there at the time. They were like, hell yeah, like get out there. Like
yeah,
you had like a crowd. Like I remember
right.
back on the ESPN stuff, there were always like millions of Tera Laho signs in the crowd. And there were Tera Laho signs when you came back, and it was awesome.
Yeah, that's
So,
funny because all I can think about driving down the hill to Crazy Horse to go racing that year, and I started seeing all the Terra signs. All I kept thinking was, I have, you know, about 35 laps to complete during, just on that Saturday alone. And there was 3 log jumps per
mhm.
lap. And I was like, oh, I got about 120 log jumps I got to go do in this ski class today. Like that's all I could think about, like on this modified ski. And the Pro Force was not known for being a good ski for the log jump. And I'm a 115 pound
Oh my
woman,
God. I know,
like
I
I
know what
can't.
you mean.
So yeah, that was what was on my mind.
Man, I don't
So
know. Maybe this is a good sign for me because now when I go to World Finals at, 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever, I'm like, man, I'm doing this again. I'm tired. Like, I got a lot of
I wish we
laps to
should
do.
put up a bunch of Jet Girl,
I
Goanna.
would love
Yeah.
that. Then
So
I'll be
what?
like, okay, I'll wake up.
Yeah, and I was never a fan of the 1500. It's just too heavy. Great engine base, but the stock Cowie 1500 wasn't my forte. I played with it here and there and at the Thailand races and
Hmm.
like but I mean, you kick ass on it. You do pretty
Oh,
well on that thing.
thanks. I had a hard
So,
time with it at first because like you, really tiny, like
yeah.
you're probably the same where like I could not manhandle a jet ski. Like I had to really learn how to like work with it. And Chris
Yeah.
helped me get a good base on the handling. And then at some point, like my eyes just opened one day and I was like, oh, if I feel what the jet ski's doing and work with it, then I don't have to fight with it. And that was like 2 years ago. And now all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I know how to ride a jet ski. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But that means a lot coming from you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Sadly, I haven't got to race Tara yet. Yeah, I think your last 1500 race was like right before I moved out
Yeah.
here, but I've seen her on the track. She's very scary. She's still the Tera-riser for sure.
Yeah. So,
Awesome. So I think that's really all I want to talk about today. Did you have anything that do you have any like nuggets of wisdom that you want to bestow on like the upcoming generation of writers on, I mean, obviously it sounds like for you, you're all about hard work. Like, do you have anything you want to say to like the new generation of like rising stars?
you have to put in the work. And if you're over here in the States right now and you think you're out just slaying it, there's a handful of girls overseas that are incredible writers. So always stay humble because there's always somebody faster than you. Um, yeah, I mean, if you want to go out and race nowadays, it's not gonna, maybe, you know, be the best career choice, but you're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And it's going to develop drive for the rest of your life like you couldn't imagine. So, and as you know, what we learned in those younger days, we apply now in life and business and, whatever. So, yeah. And always keep the body healthy.
Yeah,
That's
I agree with you. I agree with you on those worldwide gals. Like, I race all year and I'm training for the girls that come over on the airplane. And I'm like,
Yeah,
those are the ones.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Those girls over in the GP class in overseas are the shit. They are fast. So the women here, no doubt, we have a lot of fast racers,
Mhm.
but it seems like all the racers over here in the US, they can't put all of their efforts into it because there's no, they you can't put you can't work at it full time because,
Yeah.
well, most people have jobs or school or, all the things. So back in my day, and, we were talking about the 90s earlier and that whole deal with factory support. I mean, that was our jobs. So if I went out and busted my knee and still showed up and went racing the next weekend, there was a reason for that. But there's no reason to go out there and just absolutely mangle your body
Yeah.
because you want to get a title. There's a lot more to think about, nowadays with racing. So I would say that, as an older woman now, that'd be something to maybe think about, And I love what I see you doing overseas with the boats. That is so cool. Yeah, good job on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
I like that we've been kind of chatting about boat stuff lately. Like I know you do all
I love
kinds of
boats. I'm a
I
boat
love it.
captain by trade. That's what I do now. I
Yeah.
drive boats for a living. So yeah, I
Yeah.
had to be on the water. It keeps me right in the head. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been really eye-opening. I know you probably did quite a bit of travel, at the peak of the sport. And, our
Yeah.
sport doesn't really have that right now. If I'm gonna travel to race jet skis abroad, it's probably gonna have to come out of my own paycheck. So I haven't done a lot of that on skis, but, this opportunity's been cool and, it makes me thankful, but it also, it helps me understand, how people like you and Christy and Jeff develop such incredible careers because, you were balancing all of it, figuring it out. You're flying 12 hours and then racing the jet ski the next day, that stuff's real tough. So yeah, you guys really, you set the bar really high, you especially just for girls everywhere. I think, if you think you're fast, like go back and look at Tera Laho bullying dudes on the track and then like go out and try that. Like you were tough, Tara. You
Yeah.
still are. You
I
still are.
wasn't trying to bully. I was just trying
They
to
they
you
felt
know,
bullied.
yeah,
If
yeah.
and that's what
It's
I
fun.
like to try and go out and do. And most of it is jokingly, but like I always tell myself, like, win or lose, like I just want to be a problem for somebody. Like I want them to get on the starting line and be like, oh my God, here she comes again. Like I don't know if I'm gonna beat her or not. Like even, I got to race Harry Gocher and we talked about me getting to race against him and he said it. I thought it was so funny. He's like, man, I gotta get around her or else I can't. And I love that. Like, even if I can't be the fastest, like if I can get in the way just enough, like maybe I'll squeak out in front. So I learned a lot of that from watching you, just like making sure that everybody knows that you're there and you're there to cause a problem. And I always thought that was super badass.
Yeah, and one thing about you, it is true. If you whole shot, yeah, you're going to be a tough one to get around. Depending on the conditions and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, yep,
I got
I know what you're
eyes. I
talking
got eyes
about.
back here.
Well, yeah, yeah, that's
That's
cool.
awesome. That means a lot, Tara. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
All right, cool. That's all I have for now. It was really awesome to have you on the show. If you ever do get back on a jet ski, we're gonna have you on the podcast again. But I respect you taking care of yourself. You definitely led a really hardcore life, and I think anybody could take a page out of that notebook. Just like Tara is like the textbook for hard work pays off. Keep grinding, keep charging. Like Tara is the poster for that, and I always admire her
stay
for that.
healthy.
And
Yep,
stay healthy too, even when you're charging hard. Charge hard enough, but then dial it back like 5%. So I appreciate you for being on the show, Tara. Thank you so much. And yeah, be sure to follow the Pump Wash podcast for more episodes. And thank you again, Tara.
will do. All right.
This is the Pump Wash podcast. I'm your host, Jet Girl 777. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with all your jet ski bros. And be sure to follow me on Instagram, jetgirl_777 for all kinds of rad jet ski content. And stay tuned for our next episode.